Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and welcome to LinkUps. And I'm your host, Atika Sayeda. So today will be our last episode in the season that we began almost 8 weeks ago in the LinkUp series. The first season in the summer that we did for you, in which we brought many guest speakers with you, it was called Schooling and Moms. We had many guest speakers that you had the opportunity to listen to while they shared their perspectives as mothers, and in specifically as it related to the education of their children. Today is going to be the final episode of the summer season for our Link Up session. However, this does not mean that we will not continue. Inshallah, we will have new topics, new themes, new guests for you starting in season 2, which will begin earnest in fall of 2020, inshallah. But for today, this is going to be our last session of the Link Ups for the summer season, season 1. Today, what we wanted to do was, instead of talking about schooling and moms, we are on a very special day as Muslims, the day of Arafah. And what we wanted to do was have a speaker come in and kind of share their reflections and talk about the importance of this day. For me, in particularly as a mother, some of the things that I've been giving a lot of thought to is a lot of the things that our guests shared with us, all of them being mothers, was very closely connected to the values and morals and teachings that they were hoping to inculcate in their children. I know that the topic was specifically related to education, but this was a very recurring theme in many of the conversations that we had with many of our guest speakers. What we feel as mothers, in the values that we have for ourselves and what we dream and hope to see in our children one day. And we hope that the educational institutions that we choose for our children, our hope at the end of the day is that those institutions help reinforce those values. So as I sit here as a mother and as a host and as the co-founder of Sana Trust Foundation, I want us to think about the importance and the value of today, which is the day of Arafah. And what I want to do is pose a question to our guest speaker in sharing some of their own, perhaps from their travels and perhaps from their own teachers, and advice that they can give to not just me as a mother and not just to our speakers who may be mothers or not mothers as well, to remind us about the importance of the day of Arafah in the life of a Muslim, what it means to us, and how we can teach our children how to value this day as well. So I would like to call Brother Rehan Mirza to please come and share some perspective on this beautiful day of Arafah, and what you can tell our parents and families, whether it be mothers who may be listening or not, even if it's just parents listening. How can we have conversations about this beautiful and tremendous and valuable day to our children, and what will be your advice to parents in how to help our children see the importance of this beautiful day?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. And I will try my very best, inshallah, to speak to kind of what today and tomorrow and these days mean to me, both as just an individual, as a man, as a husband, as a father, as an educator, and then, inshallah, some of that spirit which we bring to Sana Trust Foundation as well. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope that there's some benefit, inshallah. When I think of these days, I'm reminded of something one of the scholars said about these days, that these are, as Allah describes in the Quran, the days of Allah. And I think that as a Muslim man and husband and father and institution leader, these are days that, when we say the days of Allah, I think that they really call us to be humble in all of those particular roles that we play as men, as father, as husbands, and in whatever leadership position that we may be in. When we're reminded about the days of Allah, we should be reminded of our humanity and our humility. But Eid al-Adha and the day of Arafah and these days in particular, I think are really, really profound for the Muslim family. And these are things that we reflect on and thought about when we started Sana Trust Foundation. I think that with the amazing team that we have today and their families, we continue to think about and try to have color all of the efforts of the foundation. But I'm just profoundly, profoundly impacted, humbled, as I mentioned, and really inspired by the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam and his family, his wife and his son, even his father, and the journey that they took as man, as woman, as husband, as wife, as mother and father, as son, as daughter. The journey that they took, that these days don't cover entirely. Obviously, they don't cover a lifetime, but when we think about these days being connected to the Hajj and Ibrahim alayhi salam and his family, his wife Hajra and Ismail alayhi salam, and building of the Kaaba, and all of the stories from the time Ibrahim alayhi salam was talking to his father until the time that he built the Kaaba with his son, who became a prophet as well. We're just reminded about, I think, a few things that I hope that I can mention in the few minutes that we have, and that I welcome you to interject at any point if need be. But I think that if we look at it in chronological order, some of the more salient points are the relationship between Ibrahim alayhi salam and his father. I think an easy place to go is that perhaps it was one of conflict, and there is this oppositional relationship between his idol worship and Ibrahim alayhi salam calling to Tawheed and things like that. But and all of that may not be true. But I think for me, as with my training in organizational psychology, I look at relationships and I look at organizations and I look at relationships that work and relationships that have conflict as well. And one of the things that I really, really appreciate in Ibrahim alayhi salam's story and in his father's relationship with him, and even obviously how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encapsulates it and shares it with us in the Quran, is that relationships are bound to have conflict. And I think people inherently are good. And I think that sometimes when you're young, and I'm not saying this is what happened in Ibrahim alayhi salam's story at all. These are all lessons that I think we can extrapolate from it as awam, as lay people, as flawed people, as people who are clearly not prophets. I think among the things that we can learn is that there is wisdom in age. There's wisdom in our elders. There's wisdom in their truths, and there's wisdom in their mistakes. And I think that that's one of the blessings in people of age, whether they be our parents or not our parents, that both their good qualities are a blessing for us, and their errors and their mistakes are a blessing for us as well when we're in our youth. And I think we see that in Ibrahim alayhi salam and his father. And I think that in spite his best efforts, obviously, Ibrahim alayhi salam was able to see truth and falsehood, and obviously it profoundly impacted and hurt him, being that it was his father and his calling was not apparently reaching the heart of his father and whatnot. But I think one of the things, and again, I'm not speaking as a scholar at all, and Allah forgive me for any mistakes. If anything, I'm just speaking as an organizational psychologist, as a father, as a husband, and as a layperson, and as an institution leader. But I think one of the things that we can take from the early part of Ibrahim alayhi salam's life is that there is benefit in our elders, in their good and in their perceived quote unquote bad. And I think for a young Muslim, they should be patient with their parents and understand that there is a good in them, even though there may be moments of oppositional force and conflict and frustrating, and why don't they understand? I think that we should, alhamdulillah, pray for our parents, pray for everything good for them, and really understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put that human being in our life for us to learn something from. And most of the time it's truth. And in a very rare circumstance, you might learn falsehood from them. But for so many of us, we've been blessed with such amazing and extraordinary parents. And I think that, like I said, one of the first salient points that I want to share is that for young people and those of us who remain children of our parents who are living, that we should just always try to be humble and always try to respect the age that they have and the life and the years that they've earned, that Allah has given them permission to live, and understand that there's great good in it for us. And then I think if we move forward to the middle years, or maybe even the later years of Ibrahim alayhi salam's life, for the sake of time, if we go to the point where he and his wife migrated for the sake of Allah to Mecca, one of the things that I really enjoy as kind of one of the courses we took in my studies was anthropology, and we looked at anthropology and research and ethnography, and it's one of the areas of seerah and hadith that I really appreciate, in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by His permission, enabled our ummah to preserve so much of the ethnography and the anthropology of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and his social interaction and conversations with his wife and his children and his friends and companions. Allah be pleased with them all. One of the things that I was thinking about recently, I was reading, it's a children's book, but I'm trying to improve my Arabic, Qasas al-Anbiya or al-Nabiyyin. And the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam comes, and it talks about the journey, obviously, that Ibrahim alayhi salam took to Mecca and settled there, and he left his family and she looked for water and all of that. But one of the things I think about is that, that journey from where he was to Mecca was a lifetime's journey. If any one of us did that today, it would be something that we would write memoirs about. What were the conversations that he had with his wife? They had so many nights and days to talk, right? In the night, whether they journeyed in the night or in the day, or when they rested, when they had meals together, this journey of so many days, likely a month's journey. What were the conversations that they were having? I'm so curious to know, what were they talking about the aspirations that they had for their son, Ismail alayhi salam. What were their hopes that they had for his future? What were her hopes? What was she sharing with him? What was he sharing with her? Having left his father, right? And all of these things that weighted on him emotionally as well, going to a new land and all of these things. It's just remarkable. The prophets and their families are just really remarkable human beings that we should study every day of our life, and certainly in these days of Allah. And so that's the second salient point that I would like to share again. And I know we may go slightly long, I apologize. The second salient point is that, to have a plan with your spouse about your journey to Allah. Because no doubt, Ibrahim alayhi salam and his family had the framework of their plan, that they were making hijrah fi sabilillah, and the rest, they did not know where they were going to find water or shelter and these things. But they had a plan for their suluk. And this is, I think, the second salient point that I would like to share with the audience, is that we must have a plan with our spouse for our suluk. Everything else is secondary. How we're going to finance the home, how we're going to purchase the car, what education, schooling options are available for, what type of food are we going to eat, whether it's organic or off the shelf, or whatever career plan, everything else must be secondary to our plan for our suluk. And if that has not been done now, after X number of years of marriage, then you need to stop everything before the Eid Salah tomorrow. And out of honor and respect to Ibrahim alayhi salam and his family, have a conversation tonight. What is our plan? Right? What is our plan, husband or wife, or even if you're just unmarried and you have friends as friends, right? What is our plan for our suluk? Let's write it down. Let's have a conversation about it. So this is the second salient point that I think I want to share, is that we must have that plan. It must have been talked about, because no doubt Ibrahim alayhi salam and his wife had conversations on their journey. And so I would impress upon us the importance of having that conversation. And then lastly, I would share the third salient point. This is again, these are my perspective as an organizational psychologist, not as a scholar, and as a husband, and as a father, and founder of the foundation, Senate Trust Foundation, to be self-critical. You know, all of these things that we've talked about so far took profound sacrifice from Ibrahim alayhi salam and his family, his wife. Of all the talk, you know, that we've done as individuals, you know, and in particular, I think when we talk about our religiosity and our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, sometimes we think that our suluk and our traveling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our ibadah is done through osmosis, that the more that we've talked about it, that the more true it is for us. And the reality is that for many of us, we have very little to show in our registrar. And I would impress upon, you know, particularly my generation, that, you know, all of those lofty ideals that we spoke about, and all of those critiques that we had for our respective communities, and all of those aspirations that we had when we were going to get married and have children, and that we were going to do Islam next level, etc., etc. Where are we in relation to those conversations? Because the easiest place to assess that is by looking very, very close to how much sacrifice have we made for those ideals that we talked about. How much sacrifice have we made for those aspirations that we dreamt about? How much sacrifice have we made for those fantastical marriages that we were planning? How much sacrifice have we made for those spiritual maqams that we were so impressed by, our mashayikh, right? What sacrifice have we made? You know, and what sacrifice to whether it be to our careers or to our entertainment, or what type of food that we eat, you know, what type of luxuries, etc., etc. How much sacrifice, you know, how much have we invested in our children's spiritual education? How much time have we invested in them, in their tarbiyah? And tarbiyah is like when you talk about tayyib and halal food. Halal food is not just halal food, it needs to be halal and tayyib. So when you talk about Islamic education, it doesn't need to just be education, it needs to be tarbiyah. And there's a difference in that. So how much have we done for their tarbiyah? How much have we invested, whether it's money, whether it's looking for the right institutes, whether it's looking for the right type of entertainment, the right type of friends, the right type of learning environments for them, the right type of teachers for them? How much have we spent, right, in all of that? And you want to know what it takes? You look at Ibrahim alayhi salam's life, and look at his wife, right, and look at his son, and look at his family. Look at the sacrifice that it takes for us to be men and women and children of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? To be men of Allah and children of Allah, and have our children be people who reflect this extraordinary faith that we have, right? And nobody get misconstrued when I say children of Allah, right? When I mean people, is people who reflect the light of our deen and the prophetic light. For us to be those individuals, it requires a sacrifice that we see, and the tawakkul that Ibrahim alayhi salam, Hajra had, and Ismail alayhi salam had, and Ibrahim alayhi salam had. So I know that we've gone long. These were the 3 points that, with your permission, I just wanted to share. One being that to have just the utmost regard and respect for our elders, and to understand that there is barakah in their good and in their mistakes even. There's barakah in it for us. The second, that, you know, what planning have we done, overt, expressive, if not written down planning have we done for our suluk, right? And if we've not had an at-length conversation about it, just about our suluk, almost as though we were doing our estate planning and our investment planning, and how much we talk about our wealth and all of those things, if we've not talked to our spouses and our friends and our children about this is the plan for our family suluk, then we've not been a family in the way that Ibrahim alayhi salam has shown us what it means to be a family of Allah. And then lastly, I would say, how close are we to those ideals and aspirations that we talked about, and how much sacrifice have we made? Because that's the barometer. And if we've made very little sacrifice in those areas, then we've made very little progress. And Allah knows best. But I hope that there's some benefit in these things, and may Allah make us like people of Ibrahim alayhi salam and his family, his wife and his son, and make our children like his children. And we hope that the work that we're trying to do with Sunnah Trust Foundation aspires to make us people like that, and the children that we serve and their families like that. And may Allah give us himma and tawfiq to do that. So Jazakallah khair for the opportunity to share these few insights. I hope that they're of benefit, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Rehan. They were absolutely of benefit, and just honestly, just listening to you speak, thinking about everything that you said, you're absolutely right. I think sacrifice is not something that, for me, as I listen to you and I think about what you said, I think we have to get over the idea of sacrifice being something not reachable or accessible, or something that we cannot surmount the courage to show our children that we are willing to make in our own lives. And be ready, for the values that we stand up for, the ideals that we have for our children. The conversation begins with us and what we're hoping to have them embody eventually into the future begins with what do we embody as human beings. And it really begins with reevaluating and thinking about everything that you said. If we do say that we want our children to be like Ismail, then we have to evaluate and think about how are we like Ibrahim alayhi salam. So I hope that our viewers benefited from that advice, and we hope that you, inshallah, join us in the next season. Tomorrow is a blessed day of Eid. We want you all to be happy. Sacrifice does, one of the things that I do want to end on, and I wanted to end on a happy note, is sacrifice does not in any way mean that we need to be sad and we need to let go of everything that we have. We do not. And we see that in the life of even Ibrahim alayhi salam and his wife and his son, that the momentary sacrifice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called them to bear, it bears fruit at the end. And inshallah, many of us as Muslims who may be fasting, if we're not in Saudi Arabia as a part of Hajj today, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our fast, that Allah accept the intention that we made today to fast, and that our children see in the whatever sacrifices that we're making a means of strength and a means for us to continue to do more and offer more to them and to the people around us and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His deen. Inshallah, we will join you again in the fall season with new topics, new guest speakers, new conversations, and we hope that you join us. And we hope that if you would like to be a part of the conversation, that you reach out to us and let us know. Join our newsletter, leave us a comment on our Facebook page, or even on our YouTube channel, or reach out to us on our Instagram channel as well. We hope to see you, inshallah, in the next season. Until then, I was your host, Atika Sayyida. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.